March exams take place in India and perhaps some other countries, I don't know. What is an example of market failure? Difficulties in allocating property rights, diseconomies of scale, high prices caused by increased demand, the existence of scarcity. Interesting. Right. Right. We can complete all with that then. You want to do the macro, or we can go in the reverse order. We can go in the reverse order. Okay, let's do it in the reverse order. The diagram shows the details of the British government's estimated spending and receipts for 2010 and 2011. All figures are in UK billion pounds, right? What can be concluded from the diagram, right? So this is the spending on the left hand side, and this is the receipts, like how much money you are getting: national income, you can see income tax, council tax, corporation tax, business rates, excise duty, sales tax, and so on, right? So what can be concluded from the diagram? Right. So, right, overall budget balance, is that a deficit or a surplus? Overall budget balance, is that a deficit or a surplus? Right. Okay. Right. I mean, yes, you need to add and subtract, right? So, effect of largest spending item on income distribution. Income distribution, welfare, right? Welfare. Okay, so you can technically do this even without a calculation. And Bob, by the way, I've just realized that you can do this question even without a calculation. So just read the question carefully. Right. Yeah. That makes sense, right? But you have done it. That's great. But you could have done it even without it. Okay. So what do you think? So first of all, tell me overall budget balance. Is that a surplus or a deficit? Just by looking at it, you can tell whether the spending is greater than the receipts or less than the receipts. If the spending is greater, because spending is 697 pounds and receipts are 548, so that's less, right? Is it making sense? Right? So that's a deficit. Very good. Now let's look at the first column. It says effect of largest spending item on income distribution. What is the largest spending item? In the spending, which is the largest spending item? Can you tell me? So what is the largest spending? Welfare. No, above. Health is 122. Welfare is 226. This is in UK billion. So it's in billion of pounds. So welfare spending is the highest item, right? Now, will that make distribution of income more equal or less equitable? Will the distribution of income due to government spending so much on welfare will be more equitable or less equitable? That will make it more equitable. So even without finding out the type of largest receipt item, you can tell that the answer should be C. You can tell about exactly. You can tell that the answer should be. You can tell that the answer should be C, right? Easy. Got it? So it's C. Any confusion so far? Do you want me to explain it more? So we did not have to do the calculation that how much item of largest receipt item. So it's always important to, understand the question and then see what are you expected to do. Isha and Rubab, is this clear? Can you move on? Now the next question says, great. When will government success right? When will government's success in achieving economic growth be most likely to conflict with the desire to reduce surplus in the balance of payments? When will government success in achieving economic growth be most likely to conflict with the desire to reduce a surplus in the balance of payments? Whoa, that's a complicated one. Um, Economic growth. Okay. Surplus. When growth increases foreign investors' confidence in the country. Increases. Hmm. When growth requires a redistribution in the level of its tariff. Hmm. When growth results from the removal or restrictions of capital outflows. Hmm. Interesting. Okay, what do you think is the answer? How many of you got the question? You want me to explain it? Okay, think about this. The question here is asking you something very simple. I mean, the wording is really complicated, but let's try to see exactly. Think about this. When will government success, right? Now it's too wordy. Forget about the unnecessary words. Just focus on the main words. What is government trying to achieve? Economic growth, right? When will government success in achieving economic growth? So what you have to just focus on that this is the main part, achieving economic growth. Likely to conflict. Conflict means that the two things are not happening at the same time. What is a conflict? When you achieve one, you can't achieve the other one. Is most likely to conflict with the desire to reduce a surplus in the balance of payments. So on one end, you're trying to reduce the surplus in the balance of payments. And on the other hand, you want to achieve economic growth. But the question says, where will that be conflict? When will there be a conflict between the two? Bob, Ishan, did you get me? So on one hand, you want to achieve higher economic growth. On the other hand, you want to reduce surplus on your balance of payments. But in which situation out of the four situations listed below will there be a conflict? Meaning one thing will not let you achieve the other thing. When the growth depends on the import of capital equipment, just tell me this thing. When you are importing capital equipment, will that reduce your surplus or improve your surplus? Will that reduce your surplus or increase your surplus? When you are importing more capital equipment, when you're importing anything, forget about whatever it is, because it is overall balance of payments that it's talking about. It's not talking about current account or anything. It will reduce. Yes or no, Abba? It will reduce. So in this case, when the growth is happening and the balance of payment surplus is also reducing, there is no conflict. I repeat myself. When your growth is taking place and your capital equipment is imported, which means that the balance of payment surplus will reduce, there is no conflict. Confusion? Not clear? You want to ask me anything? Okay, Isha, I think you dropped out of the class. Do you want me to explain the question again? Okay, have a look at this. Read the question. When will government success in achieving economic growth? What is the main part? Achieving economic growth. Be most likely to conflict with a desire to reduce balance of payments. Think about this. So on one hand, the government is trying to achieve economic growth. On the other hand, the government is trying to reduce the surplus in the balance of payments. But the key word here is conflict. Conflict means that when you achieve one thing, you cannot achieve the other thing. Conflict means when you achieve one thing, you cannot achieve the other thing, right? Alba, yeah, let's quickly discuss this. When growth depends on the import of capital goods, when you are growing. Isha, is this clear? Did you get the question? So it's saying that out of which of these four situations, higher economic growth and lower surplus, higher economic growth and lower surplus in the balance of payment cannot be achieved at the same time. That is what the word conflict means. That is what the word conflict means. Okay, great. So when growth depends on import of capital equipment, so import obviously reduce your surplus, right? So that is being achieved, and growth is also taking place. So there is no conflict. So A cannot be the answer because question is asking you a conflict. B, when growth increases foreign investors' confidence in the country. When there will be growth in the country and foreign investors have confidence, what is happening in Pakistan right now? What is happening in Pakistan right now? Do you guys know what is happening? Pakistani startups are raising funding. Airlift, I don't know if you have ever heard the word Airlift. Airlift has raised $85 million of funding in Pakistan. That is what foreign investors' confidence in the country means. So growth is taking place and foreign investors are also investing in Pakistan. My question to you is, when foreign investment is coming to Pakistan, will that increase your surplus or decrease your surplus? Will that increase your surplus on the balance of payment when foreign investment is coming in your country, or will that reduce your surplus? What do you think? Let's see if you got this correct. That will increase your surplus. Excellent, right? So here there is a conflict. Here there is a conflict. Growth is taking place, which is a good thing. You want to achieve that, but you want to also reduce the surplus on the balance of payment. That is not getting reduced. That is increasing. That is right. When the money is going back, that is when it increases. Very good. About that's correct. When growth requires a reduction in the tariff, growth is taking place, reduction in tariff. When tariffs are less, what will happen to the balance? When tariff is less, what will happen to the balance of payments? Can you tell me that? Can you tell me that? So when tariffs are being removed, more imports, yeah, means decrease in the surplus. So again, there is no conflict. Again, there is no conflict. Again, there is no conflict. Isha, are you following me? And for the last question, when growth results from the removal of restrictions on capital outflow, there was a restriction that the capital cannot go out of the country, but now the removal of restrictions, which means that now the money can go out of the country. Money can go out of the country. Then it means what? Right? More money will be going out of your country. So there will be again a deficit on your balance of payments. Right? That was a tricky one. So the answer is B. Very good. What is not a supply side policy measure? What is not a supply side policy measure? Okay, yes, students. C, why? Quickly. What is the reason why is C not a supply side policy? Because, come on, students, because it is talking about interest rates, students. Think about this. That is monetary policy. The main thing that you should have looked at, interest rates, tackling cyclical slump, whatever the problem is. We are not interested in that. We are interested in looking at the instrument. We are looking at the instrument that the government is using for the purpose. If the government uses tax, that is fiscal policy. If the government uses government spending, again, it's a fiscal policy. if the government is using interest rate, we know it's a monetary policy, right? So whatever the problem is, whether that be cyclical unemployment or structural unemployment, what is the thing that the government is using, right? So if you use these two, interest rate is monetary policy, tax and government spending is fiscal policy. So that can't be the answer. Easy, we go down this, right? Cyclical slump. Arbab, to be very honest, if you ask me, cyclical slump is the, I can tell you, but that was not what the question was really, cyclical slump is when, you heard about the business cycle? What is business cycle? Business cycle is a trajectory of an economy where its economic activity fluctuates over time, right? So sometimes you have high economic activity, right? This is boom. Then it starts to decrease. That's a recession. Then when it hits the lowest bottom of economic activity, that's a slump. And when it starts to go back up, that's a recovery, right? So that is what it was talking about, right? Got it? Got it? Okay, now 28. 28, let's see. I mean, it's so difficult, 28. 28 is C, right? Oh, great. Let's move to the next question. Next question says, which policy is most likely to conflict with the government's aim of price stability? Which policy is most likely to conflict with the government's aim of price stability? Let's see if we got this correct. D. Arbab is saying D. Isha, what do you think is the correct answer? Right. Arbab, do you want to reconsider it? Do you want to reconsider it? The question says preventing mergers. Preventing merger means what? Right? Okay. Look at it again. Just give me a second. I'll be back real quick. Look at the options again, and then we'll discuss. I just need to wear my jacket. It's cold here. Sorry about that. C. No. No, 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 no. Students, the answer is A. Let me tell you, why is it A? 27 should be A. Let me check. 27 is A. Okay, now think about it, students. Sometimes the question looks very simple, but it's not. Now, why is it not B? Preventing mergers. Think about this. What is a merger, Arbab? Merger is when two companies merge with each other, right? Like Mobiling and Varid. Mobiling and Varid, yeah, I think. Right? So when companies merge, they become a bigger entity. They become a larger entity, bigger entity, which means that they have kind of created a monopoly, which means that now they will charge higher prices. They can exploit consumers. Now that is a problem. That will means price, there will be more inflation if they merge. But if you are preventing a merger, right? Are you getting me how they play with the words? So you have to be really careful what each of the options are referring to. So it is preventing a merger, right? So obviously then prices will not rise that much. Prices will not rise that much. And limiting wage increase. Again, think about this. When wages are increasing, what happens? People have more affordability. When people have more affordability, people spend more. So if wages are increasing, I'm telling you the other side. If wages increase, there will be more spending because people affordability has increased, spending power has increased. That results in demand pull inflation. That results in demand pull inflation. But now when you're limiting wages, so there will be less demand pull inflation, right? Right, exactly, right. So this is very, very important to read the options carefully. Then increasing the basic rate of income tax, obviously when income tax increases, the affordability decreases, purchasing power will be lower, people will not buy that much, right? And last of all is increasing the spending on education and healthcare. Now, why is that causing inflation? Can you tell me? Think about the students. We did talk about demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation whenever there is increase in aggregate demand for any reason. So aggregate demand is made up of consumption, investment, G, government spending, plus exports minus imports, right? So when this thing is increasing, right, that causes an overall increase in AD. When overall AD is increasing, what will that do? That will result in higher inflation in the economy. Gotcha? Gotcha? Right, students? So you have to be very careful with the wording because apparently simple question. Okay, Isha, we can do that. We can do that, but trust me, you can better learn and you can learn faster by practicing more MCQs and understanding why each of these was correct or why each of these was incorrect, rather than going and doing the entire revision. Doing the entire revision doesn't help you with all all the answers. The technique with MCQs is more about understanding what the question exactly asks. So I would say a better strategy would be just focus on the macro MCQs for a while, and then you will feel yourself that you have become more confident in attempting those, right? The table shows some data for an economy. When are injections and withdrawals in equilibrium? When are injections and withdrawals in equilibrium? Right. So think about it. What is saving? Is saving an injection or a withdrawal? What about imports? What about taxation? Right? What about consumption? Right. So can you tell me the answer? Withdrawal. That's a withdrawal. Yeah, saving is a withdrawal. Import is a withdrawal because the money is going out of the country. Taxation is a withdrawal because government is taking the money away from the individuals. They can't spend. Investment is an injection. More money is coming in the system, in the economy. Exports is an injection. Money is coming into your economy. And government expenditure is again an injection because money is coming into the system, right? And consumption is neither withdrawal nor injection. Consumption is neither withdrawal nor injection. Now, at what level are the injections and withdrawals in equilibrium? So let me give you a hint. Where withdrawals, listen to this carefully, where withdrawals are equal to injections, that is where the economy is in equilibrium. So the economy is in equilibrium where withdrawals and injections are in, like they are equal to each other. Always remember, when withdrawals and leakages are equal to each other, that is when the economy is in equilibrium. So in which option the two are equal? In which case, in which of the four options are the two equal? Is it making sense or not? D, right? Did you also get D? Exports and injections. Yes or no? Exports and injections. Answer is D. Absolutely. Absolutely. 26 is D. Very good. Excellent. Very good. Let's move on. An upward movement in the curve relating to consumption, national income could be caused by. An upward movement in the curve relating consumption to national income could be caused by, you remember what graph it is talking about? What graph is it talking about? Movement, upward movement, not a shift, movement. A reduction in taxation, an increase in investment, an increase in national income, an increase in savings. This is an interesting question, right? So students, do you remember what graph it is? We did this graph in, no. Nisha, B is incorrect. Keynesian cross, absolutely. So since I think you might be a little struggling with this, let me show you, right? So in Keynesian cross, if you remember, we looked at this graph, right? Keynesian cross, there were two graphs, right? One was x is equals to y line. We're not talking about that at the moment. There was aggregate expenditure on the y-axis, and there was nominal GDP, or just GDP, which is national income, right? Now you have to be familiar with all these different terminology, or else you will always stay confused, right? So GDP is what? Total value of all goods and services produced in a country, and we do know that that is also national income, total income of a country, right? Total income of all the people who are living in a country. Now, the shape of this graph used to be like this. So I said that this y-intercept is made up of all the x components. So this y-intercept is made up of all the x components. C naught, I naught, G naught, X naught minus M naught. Do you remember that? Right? Now the question is saying a movement up the curve, a movement up the curve. It's not talking about a shift. Isha, what you just answered was assuming that there is a shift, right? Now that is why the wording is so important. So let's say if this was AE1, aggregate expenditure line 1, and this is AE, aggregate expenditure line 2. So it's not saying a shift. It says a movement in the curve, So moving from point A to point B. Now tell me what should be the answer. Change in injection. When is there a movement along the curve? Students, when is there a movement along the curve? Do you remember the demand curve? In AS economics, we talk about there's a difference between movement along the curve and a shift. So when there's a movement along the demand curve, what's the reason? What's the reason for that? So you have price on the y-axis, you have quantity on the x-axis, and then sometimes there's a movement along the curve, and sometimes there's a complete shift from D1 to D2. So what's the difference? Change in price, exactly. The movement along the curve is always due to, sorry about that. The movement along the curve is always because of the variable on the axis. It's only because of the variable in the axis, right? And other factors like change in income or change in preferences cause a shift. Endogenous factors, right? Absolutely, right? Okay, now tell me what would be the answer? Come on, students. You want me to show you the diagram again? What is the variable already on the movement along the curve? So moving from point A, moving from A to B, not a shift, movement from A to B. So what should be the answer now? Yeah. No, increase in national income. Arbab, think about this. So a reduction in taxation, no. I just said that whichever variable is present on the axis, that is when there's a movement along the curve. So in this case, these are the variables not written. I think this is what is confusing. These are not the variables. If any of these variables change, there will be a shift. So if taxes reduce, consumption will increase, there will be a shift. That can't be the answer, because then it would have said shift in the curve. It doesn't, the question doesn't ask me for the shift. The question is asking you movement along the curve. So movement along the curve is because of the variable that is already present in the graph, a variable that is already present in the graph. And what variable is this? National income. Is making sense? Students, is making sense? Are we good? Right? So increase in national income, right, should be the answer. 25. Wo. $25 is A. Right. Yeah. Sorry about that. An upward movement in the curve, but then how? Then B can also be correct. Increase investment. A reduction in taxation. Increase in saving is obviously incorrect, so that can't be the answer. An upward movement in the curve. Relating consumption national income could be caused by increase in national income. Increase in investment. An upward movement in the curve relating consumption national income could be caused by. Interesting. But then if we go by that argument, then the B should also be correct because that is increased investment. And we know whenever there is higher investment taking place, right, there will be increase in investment, which means the curve shifts upwards. I mean, it can be, Isha, it can be, but I mean, it's a little rare, so we not want to take that as a yeah, an upward movement in the curve. Or an upward movement in the curve. Even if that means a shift, could be caused by increase in investment, reduction in taxation, increase in national income, an upward movement in the curve, an upward movement of the curve, an upward movement in the curve, an upward movement of the curve. I mean, just a second, that is what I'm thinking. C1 is marginal propensity to consume, and y minus t, disposable income is higher. So overall, that will give you a bigger number. Consumption goes up, yeah. Consumption goes up. Okay, let's do the next question. The central bank, I'll look into it, but yeah, Albab, you were right. So the next question says, the central bank of a country creates cash. The central bank of a country creates cash to produce government bonds from commercial banks. The central bank of a country creates cash to purchase government bonds from the commercial banks. What is this called? That should be easy. That should be easy, students. We have discussed this, right? So when, right? Is this clear? Arbab, is making sense, right? So when you're purchasing bonds from the public, right, that is called quantitative easing. We talked about that, and that reduces your interest rates, right? So read the next question. Read the next question, and I'll be with you. Yes. Okay. So what pattern, sorry, what pattern of labor market data is likely to indicate an increase in cyclical unemployment? Compulsory redundancies. You're laying off people. Decrease, decrease, increase, increase in cyclical. Voluntary resignations decrease. Compulsory redundancies increase. Right. So do you both think it's C? Right. I also think it's C. Right. So let's check. 23 is obviously when there's more unemployment, you don't want to leave the job on your own. That makes sense, right? Okay. So students, let me send you a new link and let's try to do some more MCQs. I'm sending you the link, right? Okay.